I'm always gonna lift you up. I'm always gonna fill your cup. I'm always gonna be there for you. I'll always show support. I'll always open your door. I'll always make time for you. Always, always.
Where you at?
Always for you.
Thanks for being with us tonight. Woohoo!
Welcome to our Sunday Night Live, everybody.
I'll always make you laugh. I'll always check your math. I'll always look out.
Australia, good morning. Woohoo!
I'm always gonna take
Alabama, Michigan, Indiana, England. Our friends over the pond. Arkansas, Colorado, Virginia. Wow.
Always,
Louisiana.
always go. Always means all the days. Even if
How are you, sweetie?
I'm doing great.
Doesn't she look awesome?
You're so sweet.
She's gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous.
How is everybody doing tonight on this Sunday night?
I'll tell you, it's been a really busy week, has it not?
It has.
And
It's been very busy.
we have an amazing program for you tonight. We have our wonderful panels going to be here. Actually, they're here now, so let me bring them in. We've those of you who know Sergeant Lamb. John, great seeing you.
It's wonderful to be here, Chris and Karen. I guess before we get underway, I want to do my obligatory but genuine thanks to the mods and all of your viewers. So it's a treat to be here, and I'm eager to find out just what sort of stuff you've stirred up today.
And we've got Bob Gilliam with us as well. And Bob, great seeing you, my friend.
Thanks for having me back, guys. John, good to be with you. I believe Gary's going to join us here in a little bit. A shout out, as always, to your mods. Great work they do. And appreciate you having me back.
Always. And we got Gary, as Bob just said, coming in. And so real fast, for those folks that may not know you guys, John, give them a little Reader's Digest version on your background. And then Bob, if you just follow up behind that.
Real quickly, I entered law enforcement in 1974, which is probably before many of your viewers were born, possibly even their parents. I was a military policeman, and then I worked as a cop in Southern California. I have over 3 decades in law enforcement. A lot of that spent investigating homicides. I was a detective sergeant and a hostage negotiator and team leader. I also write books. So, Bob?
My name's Bob Gilliam. I was a police officer for 36 years. Many of those years I was a detective. I worked a variety of positions as a detective, including several years as a crimes of violence detective, which includes homicide investigations. I later on in my career, I promoted and commanded a couple of different detective units. And I am a retired undersheriff, and I am a graduate of the FBI National Academy, Session 249.
And that is that yellow brick behind him on his varmint hunter.
Case.
Yes. Real quickly, the yellow brick road is it's basically a crucible at the end of the FBI National Academy, which is held on the Marine Corps base at Quantico, Virginia. And it's basically a very long obstacle course. It's very demanding. And rumor has it that the Marines who set up the course relieve themselves in some of the water obstacles that you have on the course.
Imagine that.
So yeah, imagine that.
Thus the yellow brick.
But I survived it, as has thousands of other police officers. So, but it was a great experience. And anybody
awesome.
that the FBI actually has a long dissertation on the National Academy on their webpage. If anybody cares to look that up and delve into it a little bit more, it's quite interesting, really.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Well, we appreciate not only our friends here and our experts, but you there in the chat, and those of you who are subscribers to our channel, and of course our mods, as Bob and John graciously have pointed out. Without you, we can't do any of these programs, and so for that, we are always eternally grateful for your help, and not only keeping everybody on the straight and narrow, but keeping me on the path. And that's why this young lady is sitting right here, for a lot of times. Okay. You've done a tremendous amount of work, Karen. And for those of you who are also new, Karen's an investigative journalist, started with the LA Times, spent about 35 years in the game. I mean, and she still writes, articles and freelances and all this other stuff. So she's still out there, and she does not like to be told no. Let me just put it to you that way. And when an agency says no, et cetera, that's usually not a good thing.
It usually makes me want to dig in deeper, find out why they don't want something to come out.
Which kind of inspired you on tonight's program. Who are we talking about tonight, sweetheart?
Well, so this is an interesting aspect that we thought to the Nancy Guthrie investigation. We are taking a look tonight at the top prosecutor in Pima County. The Pima County, Chris calls it a district attorney. Some of you may be familiar with the district attorney's office. In Arizona, it's the Pima County attorney. They don't use the word district attorney, but it's the top prosecutor in the county. And so we've been looking into the background of Pima County attorney. Her name is Laura Conover, and we're going to share what we found.
Yeah. So let's go ahead and get going here. So
okay, but just I do want to preface this by saying, look, we all know that when there is an arrest in the Nancy Guthrie case, as long as Pima County Sheriff's Office is keeping the case and not handing it over to the FBI, which would then make it a federal case, that Pima County attorney would be the one to prosecute Nancy's abductor and or abductors. So in that context, this is why we're spending some time looking into this.
Yes, and just as a reminder for everybody, I mean, we are a non-political, we don't take a position on anybody. However, in this particular situation, we also have to be realistic and take a look, 30,000-foot view on whether or not it could impact the ultimate not only the decision to prosecute somebody, but the investigation as a whole. And so as we're going along, please don't make this conversation about politics, because we're not going to make it about politics. We're just going to state the facts from an investigative analysis aspect. It doesn't mean we're right. It doesn't mean we're wrong. These are our opinions, as you have your opinion as well, as we go through this thing. So a little overview. Laura Conover is the Pima County attorney, which, as Karen mentioned, is equivalent to a district attorney for Pima County, Arizona. And that also includes Tucson. She is a lifelong Tucsonian and was first elected in 2020 and reelected in 2024. Her current term runs through January 1st, 2029. So she has 3 more years, right, Hum?
Yeah, thereabouts.
Okay. And so what is her background and career? She earned her undergraduate and law degrees from the University of Arizona. Before becoming a county attorney, she worked as a criminal defense attorney, including time as a public defender, both federal and on the state level. She has experience advocating for both defendants, particularly the poor, and victims' rights. So she's somewhat empathetic to those who can not necessarily represent themselves, and that's not a bad thing. And so then she describes herself, though, as the third woman, meaning second defense, then second as a defense attorney, and first victims' rights attorney as she was trying to get elected for the office. So she described herself, first of all, as a victims' rights advocate. And then the second was as a defense attorney to those rights. And then she saw herself, the third role, as a woman protecting those rights. So what else am I missing, Karen?
You want to finish up on the last one, and then we'll
Sure.
go from there?
Yeah, her public service also runs in her family. Her brother is a Tucson police officer, and he leads a special mental health response team. So it sounds like she comes from a family of service. So we started looking into what her key policies and initiatives are for the Pima County Pima County DA's office. And here's what we've learned. As county attorney, Conover has emphasized reform, transparency, accountability, and restorative justice. Those highlights include she wants to end the pursuit of the death penalty in Pima County. So that means, in theory, at this point, based on her platform and her position and her policies in that office, if they capture the suspect, and I'm getting a feedback, I think it's your, John, I think it's coming through your speakers.
All right, let me see.
No problem. Testing 1, 2, test. Yep. Okay. It's you. Anyway, that said, whoop.
I'm hearing it again.
That's all right. I just muted. Okay. That said, that means in theory, if the suspect is captured in the Nancy Guthrie case, and it potentially could have been or could be a death penalty case, then you have a district attorney down there who is an advocate against it. Okay, so let's make that clear. She is an advocate against the death penalty. All right, now some people are for it, some people are against it. I don't have a position. I'm just telling you what your DA's position is in that area. Okay. The next reform that she wants to, or that she has implemented into her office, are diversion groups. In cases involving substance abuse and disorders of mental illness, and she would rather see individuals who have substance abuse problems go into treatment centers versus any incarceration. So essentially, if you are a burglar and have been robbing to keep your habit going, then you're in good luck, because you have a DA who would rather see you in a diversion treatment program than get locked up for committing crimes. Thus, that makes a lot of sense when we went down to Estevan Park in Tucson and we saw all the crime and everything that we witnessed while we were there in Tucson. So that's one of the reasons why you have these advocacy groups who are walking around with cameras saying, hey, the kids can't even play in the park down here. It's because the DA's office has taken a position since 2020 or 2021 to basically not prosecute those types of crimes. Okay. Then the next situation here, if the suspect turns out to be a juvenile in any way, shape, or form in the Nancy Guthrie case, which I don't think so, but just in case, she is also against charging minors as adults. And if you do the math on that, that means the recidivism rate, once they hit 18, their charges are basically dissolved. They hit 18, they can start all over again. Only they can start all over as experienced criminals when they hit 18. The next piece of her position here is she wants to clear homicide cases that are backlogged. As I mentioned to you, I was fortunate enough to train 2 of the detectives in the Tucson cold case homicide group, and they told me they had well over 400 backlogged homicide in the Tucson area. She has also been involved in, along with Sheriff Nanos, for the record, in reforming cash bail.
Tell us more about that.
Well, if you get arrested and you have no money, that's okay. Just promise you'll come back and you can go back out on the street. Okay? And here's the interesting thing about it. Nanos, they joined a coalition group together in support of this policy. That's an interesting spot.
Yeah, and let's not forget it's Sheriff Nanos that runs the Pima County Jail.
Yes. And so they joined forces to basically eliminate bail in Pima County, which is an interesting situation. Okay, I'm going to go right to that point so far. Welcome, Dr. Gary Bricado. Thanks for being here, Gary. And just kind of open it up for any comments to this point. John, Bob, Gary, anybody to this point, and then we'll keep moving.
Well, yeah, go ahead, Bob.
Yes. Well, you pointed out the obvious when you and Karen were in Tucson and went to the park. You just mentioned it. Policies like cash bail and quite frankly, I understand restorative justice. I think there's a place within the criminal justice system for it. But when you used it over and over and over again in high crime neighborhoods, or crimes that occur in high crime neighborhoods where there are drugs and lots of criminal activity. It's just simply a failed policy, in my opinion. And that's generalizing, and I want it to be general because it would take forever to go case by case. But I just find that to be um, a an unfortunate policy if Miss Conover and Sheriff Nanos are both promoting that. That's very concerning to me. And if I were a resident of Pima County, that would be especially concerning to me.
Okay. John, any thoughts?
Well, first of all, let me make sure you're picking up noise from my end.
No, not now, actually.
Okay, good. I could make some if you want. What bothers me, the discretionary charging of minors as adults. Now, I'm not talking about charging a 12-year-old who stole a Snickers bar from a convenience store. But it's a well-known fact that criminal organizations and street gangs employ juveniles specifically in these sort of jurisdictions to commit heavy-duty felony violent crimes with the anticipation. Part of the way they do it is they tell the kid, you ain't going to do many real time. You aren't going to be charged as an adult. You're going to be a juvenile. And as we can already see, diversion is really big in this. And as Bob has suggested, there are just so many times you can put an offender through the system and it doesn't work, that at some point you have to say, maybe we need to do something different, like maybe remove this person from society for a while, which strikes at her claim that she's on the lookout for victims' rights. Well, part of that is preventing people from becoming victims.
Yeah. Go ahead. Dr. Gary, any thoughts so far? I know you came in late, so you didn't get all the power.
Always working. Thank you. Welcome hi, everyone, I mean to say. So good to see it. I'm out there working with victims, so you understand. But I think it's important to understand that what you're describing is consistent with the general trend that's happening really all across the country. And the three big pillars of the more contemporary way that people are thinking about legal sentencing and incarceration. So they're thinking about alternatives to incarceration, first of all, rehabilitation and mental health services, and education. And so there is a movement toward seeing an individual who commits crime as needing support in those areas. In other words, there's a kind of philosophical assumption that the crime arose in the context of a need for those things. The problem is, as all of us know, there are some people, as we talk about in the upper categories of the new evil, right? There are some people who commit crime simply because they like it, who have a personality or a fantasy system that compels them to keep doing it. So the notion of taking a murderous child offender, for example, and educating them and sitting and chatting with them and rehabilitate becomes sometimes an exercise in futility, and in fact can sometimes lead to the offender learning from you how to fake insight and how to fake sensitivity and slip out the gate and go back out and do it. And I'm aware of cases where people were released and went out and committed offenses within weeks. And you are too, Chris.
Yeah.
So that gets a little bit disturbing. I think it all depends on, the motive for a person's offense, but that blanket kind of attitude can be very dangerous. There are definitely some people on a case-by-case basis where someone assesses them and says, look, this person committed this offense because it was within the context of abuse. Person committed this because they were using drugs. And those should be case by case. But to have a sweeping attitude of rehabilitation and alternatives to incarceration and education can be very risky. I don't know if the panel agrees with me, and that's the way that the trend is going, and that's bipartisan. The interesting thing is the data tell us that it's bipartisan, that this seems to be consistent with research, that this is what works, and you're seeing it go that way all across the nation.
What I love about this panel is every one of us, okay, comes from a different thought process in relationship to that. I mean, you're in New York City, Gary. I think everybody can figure out where you go. Okay. Bob's in Idaho. Good grief. Any question about those guys over there? They just had the death penalty put up for, you know what. John is on the East Coast, but I've worked around him a long time, and Karen and I, we're just kind of in the middle. That's because my sister is in,
but she's very the other direction.
Yeah. But, and so this is a very interesting dynamic and discussion here. So, Karen, what were you going to say?
It's a discussion that is, we're having this in the context of the Nancy Guthrie case. So it's a great discussion. I'm just reminding viewers, especially people, if you're just joining us, why are we even talking about the Pima County attorney tonight? You will see why, but she is the top prosecutor in Pima County. And in theory, of course, depending on when there are arrests or an arrest in the Nancy Guthrie case, and we don't know if that's next week, next year, or in 10 years from now. But we're reviewing the Pima County attorney's record, basically, and we're talking about it really in context of some of the top law enforcement leaders in Pima County.
Yeah,
I mean, we've talked about Sheriff Nanos. Of course, we've dove into his background and, the embattled sheriff over there and what was uncovered with his past record. We talked about his number 3 guy, who is...
He's number 2, actually.
Is he number 2? The head of the criminal investigations
Cameron
unit, Joe Cameron, I believe. Is he a captain?
He's a chief.
He's a chief. Okay. Those two, of course, Nanos and Chief Cameron, are leading the Nancy Guthrie investigation. And so tonight we're looking at the top prosecutor. And if they're, again, I mean, she's in office until 2029. So if there's an arrest, this would be coming on her desk.
Yes. And the other interesting thing about that is you'll notice in this panel, even though some of us sometimes number one, we're all friends no matter what.
Of course.
That's the one thing to understand about all of us. And did you guys know if you were born from 1954 to 1964, you are the Jones generation. You're not a boomer and you're not an X. There's some research and study out. My wife is tapping me like, why are you talking about this? Because I am a Joneser. Okay. I'm a Jonesy.
Okay.
And it's a whole new thing. Okay. And so why am I saying this? Because we came of age when we didn't have all the prosperity of the boomers, and we didn't have all of the other stuff that Gen X had. We were promised all this stuff, and we got the president getting, shamed, Nixon. We got, the gas prices hanging, the stagnation, inflation. We were called the fixers. But here's the irony. Our personalities developed into get over it, move on.
Yeah.
That's our personality types. It's crazy stuff. It's called Joneses. The Jones generation. Look it up. Go ahead, Bob.
Yeah, I'd never heard of that. I was born in 59, so I'm 67, and which makes me a boomer. But
no, you're not.
You're telling me I'm not a boomer. Yeah. Okay. Well.
Yeah,
that's interesting. I've always called myself a baby boomer and thought that that's what it was. But I'll read more into that. But
okay,
you're right. It was a different paradigm. I was born in 55. Think of the other things that happened. 63.
Yeah, Kennedy.
Assassination of Kennedy.
Yep.
69, the moon landing. We had a different view than the conventional boomers from the 50s.
That's right. And you know what's ironic about that? Also, they said we adapt to technology much faster because we were on the ground when it started.
Oh, they're wrong about me.
Me too. I am
Well, yeah, you
no
went from your
tech whiz
typer
at
though
all.
to your laptop. Okay. Why is this important, right? Because as we come through, our trip to Tucson, we wanted to know why in Tucson and in Pima County as a whole, specifically where Nancy lives, she disappeared. And I'm not just talking from her house, I'm talking from the community, which we just did in our last episode the other night. Okay. And we wanted to know why that is. And if in fact they do make an arrest, can this district attorney or DA, okay, can this DA get a successful prosecution with a lot of the information that the public knows and has seen? And would it be better for the U.S. Attorney's Office to somehow try to find a nexus on a federal level to basically take it over?
Well,
and we're going
Chris?
to get into that. Dr. Gary?
Well, I have a theory about that.
Yeah. Okay. Hang on to it though, because we're going to get to it. Dr. Gary, did you want to say something?
Well, I was just going to say where this becomes really important is now that in the last week we've been hearing all about this potential second note that came in which someone claims to have accidentally, accidentally led to the death of Nancy Guthrie. And you can imagine that there are some people who might actually fall for that and take a sympathetic approach that it was not intended. And I have to tell you that I think that, and I'm sure we would all agree, that part of the motivation for sending such a note is to set the stage for a legal defense.
Yes.
And that's where this conversation is very timely. I thought that's where you were going, to be honest, that the purpose of this is to say, well, obviously, this is the direction that such a person is thinking this is going to go. I'm going to get caught, and I'm going to preempt it by saying, didn't mean it.
Yep.
And then what? What happens when you're in a paradigm of let's educate you and rehabilitate you? And so you see, this very timely.
You're on top of me here. Yeah, right. I love it. That's why. And by the way, for the record, everybody, did you guys know what we're going to show you tonight in any way, shape, or form?
No.
And I love doing that because that's the kind of great reaction we get. Bob, you had a theory. What were you going to say?
Yeah. So with respect to whether or not this case will be prosecuted by the state, meaning Pima County prosecutor, or prosecuted federally, as you know, I've said this on air on this channel, and I've said it privately to all of you, that I believe that it's going to be prosecuted federally, and here's why. A couple of months ago, we saw, and we've all seen the video of the FBI agents and the federal prosecutors walking around the Guthrie house. And we know for a fact that they're federal prosecutors because the District of Arizona, the U.S. Attorney's Office from the District of Arizona, confirmed that in some type of missive to the media a day or two after they did that walk around the crime scene. And so in researching Miss Conover, I stumbled on a case, and I'm sure you guys are going to talk about it, so I won't go into a great bit of detail right now, but there's a Julio Aguirre case that is currently in dispute between the feds and Miss Conover's office, Pima County Attorney's Office.
It's a homicide,
and
right?
Yeah, it's a homicide. It was a carjacking.
Yep.
Mr. Aguirre is alleged to be an illegal alien, a Mexican national illegal alien.
Okay, hold
Tucson.
Put that Mustang in the fence because it's going to tie in perfectly.
Okay. I just want to make the point that
we're aware.
I believe for reasons that I think you're going to outline that this is still going to go federal. I do not believe that Ms. Conover is going to prosecute this case when it gets to that point.
Okay, John, you wanted to say something?
Just a question, and it's a rhetorical question. In the event that the county prosecutor does say, yes, I want to present this case, why would we presume that it would be her in person putting the case on? It's a large county. I'm certain that they have, there are other prosecutors in the office with a greater level of experience in jury trials. Would we even anticipate that she would be the one to personally handle the case? That almost, well,
When I say Miss Conover, I just mean her
You
office.
guys are awesome.
Yeah, I
this
just
is
mean
awesome.
her office, not
Yeah,
not
no.
her in particular, just
We
her office.
understand.
Probably one of her
Well,
chief
so-
deputies.
So let's
Right, but
hypothesize.
she would probably have the say of
Yes.
who's going to be
Well,
assigned.
the reason
Absolutely.
why I say that is briefly two things. In the county where I live, the Commonwealth attorney for major cases, she does do the major cases. But we can look at and go back to the O.J. Simpson trial, where two prosecutors were selected, neither of whom had homicide experience, murder trials. So selecting whatever deputy is prosecutor is going to do the case in the event that Pima County elects to go forward is going to be of pivotal importance.
Let's say you're one Sheriff Nanos, and you didn't like anybody that opposed you during your campaign, and you put everybody out to pasture, including your homicide teams. Okay. And you have one friend in the DA's office who had I don't know, not carbon copy, but similar scenario. And both of them are sitting in the exact same position where if they do get the suspect in the Nancy Guthrie case, I think I am praying, Bob, that your theory, and I agree with it, it will come to pass, because that leads us into the next position here, where her office currently, these are her policies and positions. These are her positions. Again, for the record, these are not our opinions or positions. These are the positions of the Pima County DA. Her office focuses primarily on community safety through accountability, healing, and partnerships while prioritizing victims' rights. Okay. Now, what does that mean? Well, that's kind of an interesting position, because she recently was on a panel.
Good morning. Shall we proceed?
I'll let you look up
Yes,
the
please, go ahead.
organization.
Good. Good morning. I'm so inspired by the words ahead of me, and I want to share with you something from Southern Arizona. My name is Laura Conover. I'm the Pima County attorney. That's 1.1 million people in Tucson and much of Southern Arizona. As the county's attorney, I wear two hats, the DA and the attorney for the county. And so I already had to sue the federal administration 3 times just to get them to pay their bills to our local departments. And I had tremendous nationwide help on that. But last year, when I had to sue the federal administration to get a murder suspect back in order to hold him accountable in state court and to get justice for a 3-generation local family, I had to sue the Trump administration in federal court to get him back into state custody. And I had to do that alone with my small office against the help coming in from Maine Justice Fighting. Don't get me wrong, we won. The law is on our side. We won. But I'm looking for a fair fight. And what this group of extraordinary people is offering is a chance for the nation to support us, so that when we have to go into federal court as local DAs and sue on behalf of democracy and the Constitution and to hold harm doers and wrongdoers account, it needs to be a fair fight. We need to make sure that we have all the resources available so that the law prevails so that we have a fair fight in court because the law is on our side. This is 1.1 million people in 9,000 square miles in Arizona. We share a border with Mexico, our neighbors in Mexico. We share our land with the people of the Pasquayaki tribe and the Tohono O'odham Nation. And we are so proud that this warm sun has made us a warm and welcoming community that has been resettling lawful refugees for decades, where they not only survive, they thrive. What that means right now is that over half of my community is living in crippling fear. Fear to go to school, fear to go to work, fear to just live. And at the same time, I am begging them to remain calm, to be smart, to go out there and protest as a community and do it peacefully, and to use de-escalation even when we're faced with escalation and high risk on the other side. And while I'm begging them to be peaceful, I need them also to know that if you come into our community in Southern Arizona, I don't care what you are wearing or what agency you claim. If you break state law and you cause us harm, I will do everything in my power to bring you into court and to hold you to account. These are the promises we're having to make to our communities because the local DAs are the #1 voice being heard right now and the last line of defense against our community facing true harm. I can't thank you all enough for the organizers who've come in to make this happen and for you and your attention to this. Let's go.
Thank you, Laura Conover.
Okay, so let's go. That last statement, it does not matter what uniform you wear or what badge you claim to carry. You cannot violate state law. You will be held accountable. Okay, is there any question now about the axe to grind with the federal government? Because she's talking about ICE agents.
Mm-hmm.
Why did it take the sheriff 4 days to let the FBI in? Because they hate the feds. That's why. And that's why we said in the very beginning on this panel, there's something more behind the curtain. And we said there are 2 trains going, the FBI train and the Pima County Sheriff's train. And that is why we are 5 months still talking about this. Because even though there is a perception of support for law enforcement, the reality is there is a hatred behind the scenes. And that's why Kelly showed up with a box of donuts. That's why Kash Patel released the suspect's description on his own without asking anybody. And go ahead, Karen.
No, keep going.
And that is why he sent Nanos sent the evidence to different labs without asking anybody's permission. He just did it. And that's why Nancy Guthrie is still missing. That's why none of the cops are hitting the streets and going to the places that we went to the other day and started asking questions about, have you seen this guy? There was a streamer this morning that was showing the flyer in one of the parks, and one of the guys said, that guy looks really familiar. Now, I don't know about you. I think everybody on this panel would agree that's what you want to do in this kind of case. And I said it recently about the waiting for Santa Claus. It's almost like waiting for Guffman. That said, Bob, this is the case that you were talking about. So I'm glad you caught me, which was perfect. And we had not talked, everybody, but everybody, great minds think alike. And we've always asked the question, is this being driven by something else other than the real reason for looking for Nancy Guthrie? Or is there something behind the curtain? Karen, what are you thinking?
Well, I can only speak for myself, so this is just my opinion as a journalist of many, many years. You know, we have more in common than we think we do as a society. I think everybody wants a safe community. They want their kids to be educated. They want to go to bed at night knowing that, if a bad guy breaks in, if I pick up the phone and call 911, I'm going to get help. The police are going to be there. And I think along with that, you want to know that the top prosecutor in the land you live is quietly behind the scenes, following the law and prosecuting the bad guys. Okay. That's my general sense. Of course, in today's world, things are so politicized. I think at the end of the day, though, most people in the community they live, they want to know that when police arrest the bad guy, that the prosecutors are going to pursue that to the fullest extent of the law, regardless of where they stand politically. Nobody cares. People want justice. People want the right thing to be done. And so when we hear this kind of stuff, it's going on across the country. I think to those of us who are watching the Nancy Guthrie case from afar or close, we want to know, we want to feel confident that when an arrest or arrests are made, that the people are going to be prosecuted. Bob, I understand that you really feel that the feds are going to take this over. At this point, we don't know that, of course. There's great arguments to have them, of course. But at the end of the day, we don't know that. And so I think, people feel better when they know things are going right in their community and criminal acts are being prosecuted. I don't know. If I lived in Pima County, I would kind of be wondering what is going on at the top, and are the criminals being prosecuted and put away? And so I'm living in a safe community. Those are my thoughts.
Awesome. Bob, John, Gary?
Yeah. So let me just talk about the other reason why I believe that this is going to go federal. I mentioned that the U.S. attorneys were seen walking around the property. That's been confirmed by the U.S. Attorney's Office in Arizona. The person that we didn't see, or the office that we didn't see walking around the property and doing a survey of the crime scene, was the Pima County Attorney's Office. So we didn't see Miss Conover. She's not been there as far as I know. I've not heard any reports, and I'm fairly confident with the media and the YouTubers out there, we would have known whether Miss Conover did a survey of the crime scene, nor did any of her chiefs, her chief deputies, as far as we know. So I don't believe that they've been there, and just for those reasons, and the reason in the Aguirre case that the U.S. Attorney's Office came in and took that person in custody and held them federally, and apparently until a judge ruled against the U.S. attorney. I just think that this is headed toward a federal prosecution, and unfortunately, it's already politicized, and it's going to get even worse, I'm afraid. And because I don't believe that this U.S. Attorney's Office is going to back down. And I think the reason for that is, as we just heard in the video, Miss Conover's position on the death penalty. And so for that reason, I do believe that the U.S. attorney, and frankly, and this is just my opinion, okay, so don't blow a gasket, anyone. This is just my opinion. I hope that the U.S. Attorney's Office does take this over. The U.S. Attorney's Office has a great track record in prosecuting homicides. 18 USC 1111 is the code. And they also have a great track record throughout the country in prosecuting no body homicides. And now we don't know if that's what this case is going to be, of course. We don't know for sure. But I think we would all agree that it's leaning in that direction. And so anyway, just to reiterate, I hope the U.S. Attorney does take control of the prosecution in this case.
Awesome. John, you've been quiet up there.
I've just been absorbing what's being said here. I suppose my concern is that if you've established a contentious atmosphere as the county prosecutor with your counterparts with the federal prosecutor's office there in Tucson, that sort of erosion of trust and cooperation is not going to be limited to the Guthrie case. It's going to be the equivalent of an earthquake fault that it's moving in one direction and the other side is moving in the other. And what isn't getting done, what isn't being accomplished because you've got two agencies that are involved in basically a street fight with each other.
Yep. Awesome. Gary, what say you?
Well, what I'm thinking about as you're speaking is that there has been, some buzz on other programs and the press and so forth about the question of how the personal feelings and thoughts of Sheriff Nanos may be reflected in this kind of division between the federal and what's going on in Pima. But it sounds like what you're proposing in a novel way is that it may be more systemic than that. That it may actually reflect what's going on in the entire county and the entire is this kind of disdain for the federal and the focus on this kind of small mom and pop kind of way of looking at things as opposed to thinking, and I'm curious if I'm picking that up correctly, that you see it as more systemic than Nanos.
Yes, I think, and the concern that we all had, right, when we were all talking about this, when it first went down within the first week or so, was, this, you could just sense this disdain. And we knew through experience, working cases like this, that there are, sometimes political, differences behind the scenes. It's not necessarily, when I use that word, I don't want the audience to think it's political. I'm just saying there are literally sometimes arguments that take place and say, well, we don't care what you think. It's our case. We're doing it our way, whether you like it or not. Okay. And you'll notice in some of the very first couple press conferences, Nanos made it very clear what the role of the FBI was. He stepped up to that podium. And then, he said, now I'm going to introduce Agent, Max 99 here. And when that agent got up there, he read a prepared statement that said the role of the FBI will be giving forensic support, blah, blah, blah. And he went down the whole list. Okay. Well, that wasn't by accident. That was behind the scenes and saying to the FBI, ASAC there at the time, okay, this is, if you go out there and you go sideways, I guarantee you, okay, I'm going to blow a gasket. Do you understand that? Yeah. Okay, then stick to the script. That's what happened behind the scenes. We've just had enough experience to say, well, we knew that was coming. Okay? And here we are today. That one of the things we've always been worried about was tit for tat. Okay. Think about it. Do the math here. Nano sends the lab stuff away. Doesn't tell the feds anything. They come to him and say, hey, we can do the lab stuff. Where it's at. He goes, we don't need you. We already sent it away.
We sent it to the private lab in Florida that we have a contract with.
Right. So right behind that, okay, they had all of the forensics i.e. the downloaded videos and all this other stuff, and they tap out to Google, and Google sends it to the FBI. What did Kash Patel do? He puts it up on a tweet. Like, there you go. Take that. Okay. Remember the old movie, Your Move, Holy Man? Okay. And it was literally, it was like, okay, you want to play that game? No problem. I'll play that game. And remember, it was Kash Patel who released Porch Guy. It's not Nanos. That should be a very loud megaphone that America should hear. That tells us behind the scenes, this is not going as well as they want it to believe it's going.
Chris,
go ahead, Bobby.
Yeah. Sorry to interrupt. Just one more thing too. And maybe you said this, and I missed it because I was responding to something on my text, but it was Kash Patel and the FBI that also released the info on the backpack. And you and I talked about
You're
this.
right.
We
Great
had a very
point.
spirited discussion about it on air.
Yep.
And so it's just and so I agree. It's just another point to make that coincides with what you're saying. So
No, that's a great point. I had forgotten that. So Gary, thoughts?
Well, forgive me. If you remember at the very beginning of this case, one of the things I said was that I've noticed over the years psychologically that there's a strange mirroring between the dynamics of an investigation and the dynamics of a case. And I have to tell you that I am convinced that just as there is fragmentation between the different investigating agencies, I believe that at this juncture, there is fragmentation between the parties who committed this crime. I think that those notes demonstrate that. First note and second note were not written by the same person, and I'm not so sure the first person was happy the second person wrote the second note. And what I think is that you're seeing exactly what I was talking about. It's a weird mirroring that goes on. And I think sometimes it can even be a clue of what went on in a case. It's like a civil war going on between the agencies. Then it's like there's probably a civil war going on among the people who committed it. It's a weird commission, a weird mirroring dynamic. I can't explain it, but it somehow always seems to be true.
But Gary, I mean, were we not all four of us or five of us on this panel, were we not concerned and worried this is exactly where it was going to potentially go if this thing drug on?
Well, Chris, let's face it, what you're suggesting is that these behaviors, these antics, these opinions are to the detriment of this poor woman.
The suspect's watching.
Right.
The suspect's watching. Those notes, we even said it here early on. We were the first panel to ever say this. That's noise. That's noise. Now maybe one, maybe two, I don't know, right? The feds, they haven't come out and said, yeah, those are legit. Okay. We haven't heard any of them.
They're real. Savannah thinks two of them are real. And I think it's because in one, there was information that was specific about the watch and the second one seems to come from the same place. Okay. I think that's the logic. I can't prove that.
Savannah feels that's right. Real. No question about it. But if you go back and listen to the press conference, the FBI answered that question very carefully. Mm-hmm. We always take these things into consideration.
Right.
Okay. They didn't say, yeah, we think they're real too, so therefore we're chasing down this thing. Now you've got Nanos on the radio the other day saying, that, they're making other arrests and all this other stuff. He was on the radio. Honey, what did you learn about that?
Well,
let's follow the bouncing ball.
Yeah, we're going down little rabbit holes, but they're great because it's interesting. Let me just add something before you
go ahead.
Bring us back to where we're going with this tonight. Chris, what you're describing is the turf war going on. Right. And in a lot of cases, I mean, I can think of a couple in recent that, look, it's not unusual for turf wars to go on when the FBI is called in to help a local agency, to help the state. In this case, it's like it just shot to the top of everybody's list right away because of Sheriff Nanos. And so it doesn't surprise me that we're talking about this 5 months later. And we've talked about it on this panel. It is really an interesting dynamic of what you just said, Chris. Look, the FBI released the picture of Porch Guy and the video. Okay. That was put on social media. It wasn't released through the normal channel, which is either a press release, hold a press conference, announce it, show it, follow up, make sure all the media and the public has it. And so when we were in Tucson, we kind of looked at each other and thought, wait a minute, how come the Porch Guy is not on a flyer being circulated among Pima County Sheriff's deputies?
Or a
Could it
billboard.
be, exactly, billboards, flyers,
Yeah.
posted at businesses, in public spaces, the library, et cetera, et cetera.
Television commercials.
You name it. Why is that? Why is Pima County not embracing Porch Guy to get out there and to work that lead? And all we both could think of was, well, what, they're pissed that the FBI released it and not Pima County? I mean, that just seems like a ridiculous, silly point, but we're going to continue to ask the question, why is there no Porch Guy flyers anywhere in Tucson when the case is still outstanding? No one has been arrested. They're still, Savannah's talking about the $1 million reward fund and how somebody knows something and to please call either Pima County Sheriff's Department or the FBI at 1-800-CALL-FBI.
Can I ask you guys a question? And let me be very careful that the question should not be interpreted as casting an aspersion. I really just mean it as a curiosity point. Did the charity place that you visited, Annie's Charity, was there a poster in the window?
No.
Nothing.
Or any information about the offender? This is what he looks like. Call so-and-so.
Nothing.
Goose egg.
Zero.
Did you think about that? That's interesting.
Oh yeah, we stood there and
We filmed it from the public street. You know, we didn't go in.
In the last week, YouTubers have done more in a week than the sheriff's department has done in 5 months.
And now let me
in that area.
I want to preface it. It's always the sheriff's department leadership we were talking about. We're not talking about the rank and file. We're not talking about the investigators. We're not talking about the detectives who all, I hate to say it, are under Sheriff Nanos' thumb and have to do as they are told and directed. We're not talking about that. We're talking about the leadership.
Right. No, but I hope that
from the top.
I hope that my question was a fair one. I just mean that I almost wonder if somebody said, don't put one in the window, but I can't imagine. I just found that interesting.
It's an excellent question, Gary, and I'm glad you asked it. I hadn't thought of that, but that is an excellent question. So,
well, in the dearth of flyers for both Nancy, how many flyers, Chris, were circulated with the Leticia Hernandez case? Tens of thousands?
Thousands, yeah.
Now,
thousands.
in fairness, in this case, you would not be having the distribution throughout the U.S. But again, why not? Why is there no flyers of this suspect? Why is there? It just boggles my mind. This is a major case, and these are investigation 101 tactics. We're not talking about anything particularly abstruse here.
Well,
right.
How do you know to come forward for reward if you don't know there is one?
Well, exactly.
Great point.
Yeah, and this is why
How do they think they're going to solve it?
Yeah, we were dumbfounded. I mean, sincerely,
Yeah.
it's and
what as has been pointed out many times on this channel and other places, $1.2 million will certainly get people talking if you make it known in the right places, and that's what it's designed to do. is to get people talking in order to develop information to make an arrest of the persons responsible for this crime. And that's not happening. Clearly, it's not happening.
I purchased
And that makes
information
sense.
for the cost of a package of cigars. And you're telling me $1.2 million is not attracting, but as Gary and Bob have both pointed out, if you're basically keeping the information secret, to me, the question is why?
Whoever killed Nancy, if she is deceased, if the second note is to be believed, didn't even get a pack of cigars.
Yeah.
Nothing.
Yeah. And so when we look at this idea from a 30,000 foot view about what we're talking about and where we're going here in this conversation, is so the statement on the left deals with federal law enforcement officers. She basically said, you'll be held accountable. I continue to push for an anticipated legitimate law enforcement investigation into an incident in South Tucson. At this time, we will apply the law to the facts and evidence. And again, no one is immune from prosecution. If you cause harm and I can prove it, we will haul you into court. She's talking about an arrest involving immigrations and customs. Okay. Now, everybody on this panel worked in a border town. I started in 1982, and I'm here to tell you, we even had a U.S. Customs checkpoint at the end of our town on the freeway. Okay, and we had customs and immigration enforcement that used to come into town and work. We worked alongside them 24/7, 365. If somebody committed a crime and they were not here legally under the federal law, you handed them over and then they did their immigration status. When you have a district attorney saying, we're going to arrest those who are arresting, that tells you a lot about the position they're already taking. And so we started to look at some of their criticism and the controversies that she's involved in, because she's willing to arrest the authorities that make the arrest. That's what she's saying here. This is her statement from her office. It is no wonder that she does not like the FBI, nor does Nanos. Okay. And by the way, they sat on the same committee together in that video that you just saw, and they took the exact same position. And we'll let the audience go do their own research. So what are her, what's the criticisms from the folks in that area? She has faced significant criticism from previous office holders and opponents, particularly regarding claims of ethic issues and the State Bar of Arizona diversion program related to misconduct allegations. This is going to sound familiar in a couple of minutes. As you guys remember in the chat and the audience, there's almost 10,000 of you here watching. We uncovered Nanos's background, where he was basically given a chance to resign or basically get arrested and go to jail.
Because he used excessive force on somebody that they had arrested.
A prisoner he beat and put into the ICU.
Probably
With
almost.
the flashlight? Was that the
With a flashlight.
Yeah.
He beat the crap out of another human being under the color of authority, which is a federal offense. Okay.
You guys ever hear of that in your career, in your law enforcement careers? Anything like that?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But none of us ever did anything close to that.
Of course, but have you heard of stories like that?
This
Oh,
guy
yeah.
had how many suspensions? 37?
37 suspend. We're talking about Sheriff Nanos right now. Yeah.
37 days on the beach. 37.
In a 6-year police career.
Handcuffed? the guy was handcuffed that was being beaten?
That guy in that incident, he had an accidental discharge. He had all kinds of stuff. We did a whole show on it. It's in the playlist.
But handcuffed, I mean, that's
that's a different level.
It's fundamentally wrong. And yes, I had an incident. I discovered one of my officers did that, and next stop was internal affairs, and because I would not tolerate that. And nobody who knew me when I was working the streets would think that I was a shrinking violet or always looking for, that I would turn the other cheek. But you do not beat people. Not wear that badge. You don't sully the badge. You don't behave like a thug. And that's thug behavior.
Yeah. And so also there are claims that interference in court cases of claims of, conflicts of interest. Her policies on the death penalty and diversions have, folks have been arguing it has impacted public safety as a whole. And she's been involved in public disputes with both federal authorities over custody of suspects, resource allocations, which we just saw a moment ago, where she was on that panel and told that panel she had to sue the federal government to get a suspect back who had committed murder that they were trying to deport out of the country. So she sued to get him back, not put him in prison. Okay, do the math. So she has 4 buckets here. Number 1, relating to her professional matters. Number 2, she faced a state bar of Arizona investigation into alleged misconducts stemming from complaints by a former prosecutor, including issues around a high-profile case and campaign statements.
And I'm going to get into that.
And Karen is actually going to dive into that as we speak.
Okay, so this caught my eye when I was doing research. The Pima County attorney, Laura Conover, she had 22 complaints brought against her by one of the top prosecutors, a deputy prosecutor in her office. And he made these complaints to the Arizona Bar Association back in 2024. So the 22 complaints go to the Arizona Bar Association. They decide to do an investigation into Laura Conover. The complaints were filed by one David Berkman. He was a former Pima County attorney, deputy attorney, who left the office as Conover took over in early 2021 after she won the election. So the Arizona Bar Association, it's a quasi-governmental agency that regulates the conduct and discipline of Arizona lawyers, including, in some cases, they make recommendations for suspension and disbarment. Okay, so what were the complaints? Allegations of making false statements during her campaign for county attorney, making false statements concerning her employees at the county attorney's office, failing to represent the Board of Supervisors in an ethical manner, and failing to ethically administer justice in the Lewis Taylor case.
Okay.
Which we're going to come back to.
Yeah. And let's hold on just for a second there. She's made false allegations, or excuse me, read the allegations again.
Making false statements during her campaign for county attorney.
Sound familiar?
Making false statements concerning her employees.
Sound familiar?
Failing to represent the Board of Supervisors, because don't forget, she says she wears 2 hats, as the county attorney and as the district attorney.
Sound familiar?
And then failing to ethically administer justice in this one case that we will get to.
Okay, so we have Nanos, okay, who lied on his resumes during his campaign. He put his opponent on house arrest, disallowing her to even talk about her campaign. She was also running for sheriff. And when he got reelected, he disbanded all of his opponents from the major units they were in. And the biggest one that suffered and is suffering even till today is the homicide unit. If you had voted for his opponent that he put into political prison, then you lost your job at the sheriff's department. And you were stuck into a weasel cabinet somewhere in the county. Even though you may have worked homicide for 10, 15 years, what Nanos did not expect was the abduction of Nancy Guthrie. And it is now starting to present itself as to why nobody was prepared for such an investigation. Because he disassembled the direct patrol functions of his agency. How many are there today, Karen?
One centralized, but there used to be one in every district, and it's the directed patrol teams.
So these are the guys and the gals that are on the street getting informants, twisting information, and asking and showing flyers about Nancy Guthrie. That's how normally it would have used to work. But not anymore.
Well, Chris, can I ask you, when you guys went there, did you speak to any members of law enforcement who expressed that?
Oh,
that
yeah.
concern?
We had dinner with them.
Oh, I see. So this is a feeling that's been sort of free floating all throughout law
It's
enforcement.
widespread among the rank and file.
Yeah. And
Yes.
I'm not just talking about the union guys. You guys have heard those guys. Okay? We're talking about the guys and gals on the street. And most recently, we had a situation in front of Nancy Guthrie's house where folks were arrested, and they said, we're being ordered to do this. And by the way, that's all on body camera of the officer saying, look, I know you're not doing anything wrong. You can't make this stuff up. It's right out of central casting. And go ahead, Bobby.
Yeah, I mean, this is just all more of the Nanos effect. And
Yeah,
he is having a profound negative effect on this investigation, and you're uncovering why. I mean, this is why this thing is not moving forward. Apparently, it sure seems that way to me, and it's the Nanos effect.
Well, I have to say that the county attorney, she stands alone. She's not part of Pima County Sheriff's Department. She's her own beast, her own animal. And I want to finish what happened. I left it as a cliffhanger.
Finish your thought. Go ahead.
Okay. So there's 22 complaints. Arizona Bar Association opens up an investigation into her. And they come back and they say, well, we're going to let you do a diversion program. So in other words, she cut a deal to avoid facing significant misconduct complaints. So under Arizona court rules, diversion is an alternative to formal discipline. So let that sink in just for a minute, okay? It was kind of like a plea agreement in a way. And Laura Conover has not released the details of that agreement between her and the State Bar Association. And for the record, she denies misconduct allegations. So let's, because as a journalist, we got to balance this thing. I'm going to read what some of the statements she made in responding to this diversion program that she had to do, which, by the way, lasted for about a year. So this went down in 2024, and she was monitored by the State Bar Association for a year. She says, quote, I have agreed with the State Bar that I will seek advice from experts about communication and perception, and will take a seminar. The agreement I have made with the State Bar is not discipline against me as a lawyer. So it should also be noted, if she had failed to comply with the terms set out, a new disciplinary investigation could have been initiated. Successful completion of diversion results in the underlying matter being dismissed. if she successfully completed it. Okay. So, but, there's a little more to this. So if the state bar investigation finds probable cause on the allegations, the respondent attorney, the person in question, may enter into a diversion agreement, or the council may proceed with a recommendation to the bar for further adversarial disciplinary action. So obviously they found probable cause in these 22 complaints against her. So
That's why I love this girl.
Yeah.
I mean, nothing gets past her. So let's do the math here. Right, Johnny? I see you shaking your head up there. What do you think?
I love the standard fallback when bosses get in trouble. I'm going to learn, I'm going to consult with people to improve my communication. If I had money for every time I heard some manager caught and then saying, I just communicated badly, I'd be wealthy.
the fact that she had to take a seminar, I mean, doesn't that kind of like give short shrift to the complaints? Like, oh yeah, I had to sign on. I had to go take a class, online class, something, whatever. We don't even know what this was. And the local media did press her and her office to release the agreement, and she has refused for a couple of years now.
So if we start thinking about the math on this one, this resulted in a diversionary agreement, a non-disciplinary resolution involving supervision, monitoring for a period. She has denied the underlining allegations, and no criminal charges arose from it.
Yeah, this was never any kind of criminal charges. These were all ethical. Therein lies
The problem.
The problem. Ethics.
So you have one Sheriff Nanos who is, basically told, hey, you want to go to prison? And he goes, well, no. Then they say, okay, fine. It's time to go. Quit. And they let him go.
That's El Paso Police Department back in the 80s.
Because they couldn't take the man that he beat almost to death and put him on the stand at the grand jury, because that guy had an attorney and was told, if you testify against him, anything you say can and will be used against you in your robbery case. So therefore, I'm going to advise you not to testify in front of the grand jury against Nanos. You're going to just have to wait until your case is adjudicated. And of course, that was the gap of opportunity that Nanos needed to accept the deal and skip town. So if you think about that, had that guy testified, we don't know what the result would have been against Nanos. He may have been a prisoner himself by now. That's how bad it was. But do you guys understand that in the chat, how that unfolded? And now we have the DA in Pima County who was also given a deal. But her deal is, you know what? We're going to watch you for a whole year. How many DAs do you know that the bar says you're going to be monitored for a year?
I don't know of any.
I've got a more fundamental question, and I'll ask all of the panel here. And I would ask our people watching, if you were accused of 22 counts of being essentially told that you behaved unethically or dishonestly, would you take the deal? Somebody comes to me and I have done nothing wrong, I'm going to say, let's get it on. I didn't do those things. I want my name cleared. So I would just ask you guys, if you were accused of misconduct or dishonesty or unethical behavior, would you take the deal to just make it go away?
Yeah. And so we also started looking for, like you're talking about, John, that's just such a solid point, as always. Such a solid point.
And let me answer that, John, since you didn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think you're spot on. I would not take that deal if I thought that I was completely innocent. Okay. And let me just make one more quick comment before I forget on the Nanos effect. When I say the Nanos effect, I'm talking about Nanos himself, not necessarily Miss Conover, although they, it's obvious to me now that some of their antics are overlapping into an agenda. So anyway, I just wanted to make that point before I forgot.
Yeah. And
but I agree with John. Yeah.
So I'm going to ask the panel, one of the questions that I've had on these notes coming in, how come KVOA didn't get one? The embassy affiliate.
Or did they spike it?
Well, and so I was curious if, seeing how Nanos he only gives exclusive interviews to KVOA. Okay. I wonder how they handled the DA. Well, let's find out.
Attorney Laura Conover and the Arizona State Bar have come to an agreement after a longtime former prosecutor questions her conduct in the Lewis Taylor case.
News for Tucson's Eric Fink is live downtown outside the Pima County Attorney's Office to explain. Eric.
Sean Monica, Lewis Taylor was in jail for decades for allegedly starting the Pioneer Hotel fire back in December of 1970. In 2013, he took a plea deal to get out of prison, and now for more than a decade, he's been trying to clear his name. Now, just recently, a former prosecutor in the last county attorney's administration filed a complaint regarding Laura Conover's actions. Former longtime prosecutor David Berkman, who used to work in the Pima County Attorney's Office as the chief criminal deputy, tells News 4 Tucson, when County Attorney Laura Conover was running for office in 2020, Conover said she thought Lewis Taylor was innocent and should be compensated. Once she became county attorney, according to Berkman, it was Conover's responsibility to defend Pima County in the criminal case involving Taylor. Berkman argues there's a clear conflict of interest for Conover. And after this judgment by the state bar declaring it will supervise her conduct for the next year, Berkman feels he was right to question Conover's actions.
She's under supervision by the Arizona State Bar with respect to her ethical conduct for 1 year. So I do believe I was vindicated because the bar, to come forward with these charges, had to have clear and convincing evidence of her misconduct. They must have found that, and now she's accepted diversion and decided to cut a deal rather than fight the charges. So yes, I think I've been completely vindicated.
In a statement, Conover sending this response, quote, "My goal is and will be to maintain professional and legal ethics. Like every single licensed attorney in Arizona, I am committed to continue learning now and every day, and for as long as I hold this office. For the benefit of non-lawyers, it may be helpful to know that according to the state bar rules, a diversion agreement will not be used for serious conduct. Generally, diversion is only available when the alleged conduct is minor."
Well, that sounded like a pretty good cover play.
That's
Nothing
like,
to see here.
yeah,
This is
like,
these are not major things. This is very minor.
Nothing
Don't
to see
worry
here.
about this, folks.
this is like
Yeah,
being
nothing to
I got
see.
this.
pregnant.
Absolutely nothing to see here. Move along. She's, like she just said, I'm learning. To your point, because she basically said what you said, John, every administrator, et cetera. And now in the chat, I'm sure there's going to be people that are going to, Yahoo, whatever. Okay. But you know what? The facts are the facts. And you follow the bouncing ball. Wherever that ball goes, you follow it. That's what investigators do. And that's what we're doing, because now Nancy Guthrie, her case
Attorney
has 3 parties involved. The one on the left, the one in the middle, and the one on the far right. What do they all have in common? Well, there's 3 parties to the left of you watching this screen, and not one of them has an ethics, a criminal complaint, or had to change their name.
Let's remind people who the guy is on the right.
Go ahead, tell everybody, honey.
This is Pima County Captain Joe Cameron. So he used to be Joe Harvey, Deputy Joe Harvey, until, and refresh my memory, Chris, but he got into some trouble as a deputy, and he was forced out of the Pima County Sheriff's Department. He fought his complaint, or he fought the ruling in court, ended up changing his name, won in court, and won his job back. So then he came back, not as Joe Harvey, but as Joe Cameron. And under Sheriff Nanos promoted him to captain, and now he's the captain of the Criminal Investigation Unit.
He's the chief.
He is the chief.
Got 2 stars there.
So that means he's the overseer of the Nancy Guthrie investigation for Pima County.
So this guy has never investigated a homicide in his career, we found out. And he reports to Nanos. Nanos reports, or keeps at least briefed, the DA there. And go ahead.
It's also worth pointing out the county attorney, she came from a criminal defense background. I believe she was never a prosecutor. Am I right?
Correct. Well, no, she's never prosecuted a homicide case.
Never prosecuted a homicide case. Okay.
So you have a DA that's never prosecuted a homicide case. You have a sheriff that's never worked in homicide. And now you have a CID chief, Criminal Investigations Division chief, who has never worked a homicide case. One of the things we talked about on this panel was I had heard that the sheriff made all the calls, was making all the decisions. Now, Juanita Adami, if you want to hear some really good stuff, go over to her YouTube channel. She is a journalist, and she has put up some Broadcastify
scanner
traffic, where it sounds like the sheriff is doing just that, making all the decisions in some of those radio calls.
And that's from February 1st, the day that Nancy Guthrie went missing.
Bob?
Yeah, and I listened to that last night. In fact, I wrote Juanita a note. She points out does a great job of pointing out that using the radio transmissions, there seems to be an emphasis on the search for a missing person rather than working Nancy's house as a crime scene for the first couple of hours, because Juanita points out that Sheriff 1, which is their air support helicopter, their air unit, is on the radio, and they don't have a 24/7 air support unit to my knowledge. So they use their helicopter as needed. So they've got to call a pilot out and a crew. So they run at least 2 people and probably 3 in the helicopter. So they had to call all of them out. So Chris, John, and I understand that takes a little bit of time. I don't care how close you live to the airport or to the sheriff's office. It takes a little bit of time once you're called out to respond, get geared up, and be in service. And so anyway, my point is Juanita did a great job in spelling this out, and I'll echo what Chris just said about going over to her channel and watching that episode that she posted. I think she posted it actually 2 days ago. I just happened to watch it last night. So
yeah, it's thanks, Bob, for bringing that up too. Carol, what were you going to say?
Can you bring that photo back up on screen?
Absolutely.
Without making light of any of this, I feel like underneath this, we should have the line, should we be worried? should we be concerned about this investigation? I mean, it's an honest question. We're asking the questions, and I'm concerned. I mean, as a journalist watching this, following the case, I mean,
Going to the town.
going to Tucson, trying to make sense of what we're told, everything from the timeline, the ransom notes, the Bitcoin, why no one seems to be searching actively for Porch Guy and or Nancy, her body, trying to make sense of all this. I don't know. What do you guys think?
I think you're on target. And by the way, this is her name. I'm going to put it up there. And maybe somebody can grab her YouTube channel link and go ahead and post it into the chat for people, because it is worth going over there and listening to all the work that she's put into this. There have been a couple of really great things, that Monk's intrigue. That young man is really smart, and he's done some good stuff. There's a lot of really good stuff being done by YouTubers and streamers. I mean, this is a perfect example. And Karen and I reminded everybody the other day that, these major networks are laying people off. And guess what? All these professional journalists are opening up YouTube channels. That should tell you something. Okay. That should tell you something. The power of this platform, if we do it correctly and continue to do it correctly, is a responsible platform to take care of, the right things. And to Karen's point, I agree with you 1,000%. The guy on the far right lost his job. He was almost a felon. He had to change his name. And when he changed his name, he came back under an alias. Now do the math on that. He came back to the same agency that fired him. He had an appeal. He got his job back, but he changed his name to come back to the agency. Now he's running the Nancy Guthrie case as the Criminal Investigations Division Chief. This guy.
For emphasis, Chris, you've had, 40 years in law enforcement. Bob, you're close to 40 years. John, you're close to 40 years. In your combined years, have you ever come across, coast to coast, a commander in a large police agency that was fired, changed his name, allowed to come back, and then promoted?
No, never heard of that.
John?
Never heard of it.
No, this
or
is
anything like it.
I know.
Yeah. In fact,
Never.
the circumstances are mind-boggling that this person would end up in a position of enormous responsibility within the organization. That's just, I just can't even make sense of that.
And Karen, you correct me if I'm wrong here, but I believe, though, just to be fair to him, that he was reinstated from a termination. Correct?
Yes.
Didn't an employment board, I think it was, I don't know if it's the county commissioners or who reappointed him, but he did win his job back. So I think it's fair to point that out when we're talking about him.
I also think it's fair to point out he did a list of things to get his job on the line.
Sure, absolutely.
Things that most deputies never do in their career. So he had to have done a long list of things in order to lose his job before he won it back. That's my point.
Well, it's interesting that these are three peas in a pod. And this is a very dangerous combination for Pima County, because they are, all three of these individuals have already displayed a willingness to break the law.
Well, let's be fair to Laura Conover. We're talking about ethics. We're not talking about criminal actions.
Well, but if you take an oath, and in that oath, you swear to uphold the law ethically, and then you break that oath, that's essentially where I'm going, what I'm saying.
Yeah. And that's a point of clarification from what I'm saying.
Yeah, no, I'm tracking you. And then, but the other two, they did enough damage to the citizenry. And so does it surprise anybody on this panel that the guy in the middle tells the guy to the right, who tells the patrol, go down there and arrest those people? And now the person on the far left is going, well, what do I do with this? And there's court hearings coming up where they've already filed petitions to dismiss the charges on at least one of the people they've already arrested. We won't know until. Go ahead, Bobby.
Yeah, I think there's a good chance those YouTubers arrested will probably have the charges dropped. You know, I don't have all of the facts, but it concerns me, as I mentioned the other night, that they're being arrested for plying their trade on apparently on public property. And you know, to me, as a longtime police officer, that's very concerning to me, that perhaps their First Amendment rights are being violated.
Well, particularly when they allowed the major media outlets to do exactly the same thing. You don't get to pick and choose as a law enforcement officer who gets the full benefit of the Bill of Rights.
Good point.
Great point. And, you know, to her credit, if she does drop all three, then she's doing the right thing. Unfortunately, to the guy in the middle, then there, you know, as Ricky says, you know, to Lucy, you have some explaining to do. You know, Lucy, you have some explaining. Okay. Because
I'm surprised that there isn't a personal, there isn't an attorney who isn't already out there looking to file a lawsuit.
Yeah, jumping pro bono on this one.
Oh, yeah, because you're going to get your money back, because if, as we understand the circumstances, that these people were on public right of way, that they weren't impeding any vehicle traffic, and that previous media outlets had been there, it looks to me like it's a violation of First Amendment rights.
Yeah, and so we'll see how this is unfolding. Gary, you're being real quiet. What's the psychology going on here of these three character sets?
I have no idea. I only know.
What's your opinion?
No clue. I'm not in their minds. I don't know. It's best that I not speculate. What?
What's your opinion of what you're hearing?
I want to be very careful to not comment on people's ethical behavior as a professional myself. I think those are things that get looked at by boards and people that take things into very careful consideration, and I don't know the details, so it's not fair for me to comment on it. And you know what I mean? I just think I don't know all the details. I mean, do we even, for example, have all of the details on the ethical, the allegations that were made against what is her name? Laura, what's the full name?
Conover.
Do we even know? Because I mean,
we have some of them, and then she is not releasing the diversion agreement that she agreed to with the state bar.
Wasn't this the same person that wanted transparency?
Well, I saw with a quick look on Google, somebody wrote a kind of editorial where they tried to guess what the ethics case was about, and they said that their educated guess was that it had something to do with having talked about wanting Taylor exonerated in social media, and that
I think that was a part of it. That was a part of it.
But that's interesting, right? If that's true, so it's like, you know, you say, I'd really like to see this person exonerated in social media, then that becomes a conflict of interest with regard to. So, I mean, that's interesting. I don't know if that's true. Did you hear that to be part of the story?
Yes, that was one of the stated allegations.
Yeah. No, but I mean, that's not just speculation. That's someone's.
Yes, that was part of it. And it was wrapped up in statements she made during her campaign. I think that was part of it too. And, she was accused of making false statements during the campaign, false statements concerning her employees, failing to represent the Board of Supervisors in an ethical manner, failing to ethically administer justice in that Lewis Taylor case that you're talking about. And just for the record, maybe I should just let people know what that case was. And they mentioned it on the piece we played. But Lewis Taylor was convicted of murder in 1972.
It was African American, right, Karen?
Yes, for a hotel fire that killed 28 people. In 2013, he was released from jail after accepting a no contest plea. He then filed a federal civil lawsuit against Pima County and City of Tucson. He also had a separate case in state court, which he was seeking to clear his criminal conviction. And apparently Laura Conover was planning to exonerate him as the top prosecutor, but later she reversed her decision.
Right. But what I was trying to figure out is, in other words, that's not speculation of what was in the charge. That's official charge.
Correct.
That thing about Taylor. And is the logic that he was like mentally ill or something when he committed the 28, this sort of this accidental mass homicide? Is that the idea that she wanted to see him exonerated?
Well, unknown those details. He was a juvenile, I believe he was under 18.
Oh, okay.
When it happened back in 1970.
I think it's important to point out that even though we're not trying to convict anybody here of wrongdoing, right, there are definitely some questions, and the overarching point is we have 3 law enforcement leaders of Pima County who are not only in charge of the Nancy Guthrie investigation, but hundreds of other criminal investigations, civil investigations, etc., that have this asterisk hanging over them because of their behavior, or potentially because of their behavior, or their alleged behavior in Miss Conover's case. We already know Nanos and his chief have question marks, and in fact, Nanos, we know a lot more of his history than we do the other two. But the point being is, this should be very concerning to any resident of Pima County. It concerns me, and I live nowhere near Pima County, and that is very troubling. And it should be no surprise to anyone that this case is taking the path that it has to this point, because we have people like this leading the law enforcement response and investigation. So that is very, very concerning to me.
Well said, Bob. Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, it just opens up the what if category. And I mean, just look at what one criminalist in the Colorado Bureau of Investigations in the lab, she was just found guilty of fraudulently, creating DNA reports. And do you know how many homicides that's going to impact in that state? Every single one she worked on.
You mean cases may be thrown out?
Thousands.
The defense is thousands.
Yeah.
The defense is going to step up and say, "Hey, that's my guy." And that this is the point that Bob just made. If these 3 down the road, even, or now that are on the road, just put the Guthrie case aside, DOJ should be sitting on these things, these people, and monitoring this county. They need to, the Civil Rights Division at the Attorney General's office needs to come in and do a full audit on what's going on in that county. Because I think we're just I think we're just seeing the tip of the iceberg. I think there's a lot more under the water that none of us are seeing. And I think the YouTubers getting arrested is just the symptomology that we're seeing. Because those body camera videos are going to tell another story than what Nanos is going to say. And you can bet your, dimes to donuts, he's not going to cover those guys. He's going to say, yeah, I gave, I'm sure, perhaps. And then the lieutenant's going to say, well, hey, I was told, I'm not sure, whatever. And then it's going to come down to the guy down at the bottom who said, look, you're not doing anything wrong, but I'm here to tell you, I got orders to arrest you. All right. Well, you know what? You can bet Nanos is going to say, I didn't say that. If he already has a propensity and willingness to potentially beat a prisoner, you think he's going to jeopardize himself anymore?
I was wondering why the Pima County Deputy Sheriff's Association has not queried their attorneys to go to a judge and seek an injunction of the sheriff in this situation. If what we think is true is actually true, then I would think that they would have a good cause to at least petition a judge for an injunction. If these, especially if Conover comes out and deems these arrests unlawful and in a violation of their rights. So she's likely not to do that. If she does anything in the deputy's defense, or I'm sorry, in the YouTuber's defense, she's probably just going to drop the charges and not say another word about it, because that once again puts her in a precarious position, because she is the prosecutor and the county's attorney. And as we all know, that opens the county up for a false arrest lawsuit, violation of rights, and I mean, a myriad of different tort claims. So
yeah, we'll have to see how it plays out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's, I'm just thinking
out loud.
Yeah, out loud about it. But I could see that happening.
A valid point. John, what do you think?
I don't think an organization like this gets this screwed up all of a sudden. This has been building. I've got to say, frankly, to see these two characters as number one and either two or three in the organization with their backgrounds, I'm just stunned at the idea. But it is the people at the top of an organization who set the tone for how the organization's collective culture, character, and personality. So this has been coming along for some time. And my guess is, regarding the arrest of the YouTubers, that it will be the lieutenant who was passed the information, and we'll get the famous, it was bad communication, but they'll throw the lieutenant under the bus. They'll try and make it appear as if the middle manager who passed the instructions along got it wrong. And but I mean, an organization doesn't get this to this place, this level of dysfunction. And we're continuing to see the dysfunction as far as any meaningful efforts to identify Porch Guy. This has been coming for a while.
Well, Chris, with regard to the letting go of all those people, and I don't know if you mean that they were laid off or moved to other areas. I wasn't, but it's interesting because I wonder if part of the justification for it is that, I was looking at the crime rates in Pima County, and they've shown a very clear decline over 20 years, particularly violent crime. There's a 41% reduction over 20 years that I saw, except for COVID. During COVID, there was a spike in homicides, and then it went back down. It looks like the vast majority of crime is larceny that goes on. And I wonder if the justification didn't have something to do with, well, we're doing something right, the crime rate's down, we don't need this many. But it would be interesting to see what happens to that crime rate now in the later numbers.
Right.
Chris, can I handle that? Can I mention something first?
Right.
Yeah,
And I'm sure
I know
the
where
stats are a little bent. Yeah, go ahead.
Statistics, crime statistics, police managers.
Exactly.
It is an art form of concealing crimes, discouraging reports, taking felony crimes and suggesting to officers that report them as misdemeanors. I saw this in an agency in San Diego that they wanted to lower their burglary rate. And I won't name the agency. So what they said was, well, if it's a burglary of a garage, report it as a vandalism and a trespassing and a petty theft. And presto changeo, their burglary rate dropped. It's one of the biggest con games in law enforcement management.
One could write a book about it, probably. So let me understand. Are you saying that there's a motive for reporting numbers differently because it makes the department look good, or it helps real estate, or it
makes the bosses look good? I mean, you're suggesting now if there is collateral benefit to the people that will support you, that's fine. Police administrators do this so that they create resume bullets, because they're never going to stay at that agency. They're going to go someplace else, and they can say, look, I lowered violent crime 17%. No, you didn't, because A, you weren't out handling the calls, and B, it's generally done through sleight of hand. So if I sound a little cynical about this, ladies and gentlemen, sorry, I've seen it.
Well, what I'm getting at is I'm wondering if the statistics are part of the justification for letting, because I mean, do you need any justification for letting people go or downsizing?
Well, why would you, if that's the case, if there was a reduction in homicide, and it's kind of hard to conceal a homicide, it would tell me that you've got very skilled people in the office. So why would you move them out?
Right. Though that's what I'm wondering, is if after they were gone, the statistics changed. I mean, that's what I'm getting at. I mean, because then it justifies that it was a bad move. And I'm trying to figure that out. Yeah.
Let me offer this. I've often said, compared homicide investigation to heart surgery. Not everybody, you only need a heart surgeon when you are diagnosed and you have a very serious heart ailment. You need a heart surgeon. Not everybody needs a homicide detective until there's a homicide, whether it's you, your loved one, whatnot. It is so specialized, and that experience can only be gotten on the job. You can go to as many classes in schools, but you have to work homicide. For the leadership, for the sheriff to not fully understand that, and I'm giving him grace by saying that, why would an agency that covers 500 square miles, huge geographic area, huge, large, million population, why would you not want to have the best crack and most experienced homicide team ever? Because you can manipulate the stats, crime stats, all you want. A homicide is a homicide. And if those go unsolved, your agency looks really bad. Cold cases are terrible for public relations because if families start complaining, there's a cascading effect of what happens in a community when homicides are unsolved. So the fact that he stripped all the experience out of the homicide division and moved them wherever to whatever, and I'm sure people said, screw that, I'm going to take an early retirement or whatever, or wherever they're working. That is huge. And I don't think the public there fully understands the consequences of that. We do now when to Chris's point, you know, there's a high profile homicide. The fact that he did it shows not even understanding leadership, public relations, and so many things that are needed to be an effective leader in a police organization, in my opinion.
And you know,
so if you're go ahead, Chris. Sorry.
No,
then I'll make the point.
Real 30 seconds. To get a taste for that, if you've never worked homicide, just listen to YouTube. Listen to all the theories that are out there of people that have never been there at 3 o'clock in the morning over the dead body.
That's true. Some of them are really out there.
So another thing.
Yeah, go ahead, Bob.
I'm sorry, Gary. Didn't interrupt you.
Please.
Another thing. So if you're wondering in the audience what the true crime rate is like in your community, the best thing that you can do is go talk to the street cops. Okay. The patrol officers wearing the uniform that you may see around your community, go talk to them and build a rapport with them, and they will tell you the truth. They'll tell you they know exactly what's going on in the community. They know what's going on in the neighborhood, what the crime trends are, where the bad actors are, and hopefully they'll give you a few tips on how to safeguard your home or safeguard yourself or your family from any trouble. And I don't care if you live in a safe community or if you live in an inner city where where there's a lot of crime, go talk to the street cops anywhere in the country, and they will, 99% of them will be straight up with you and not play the political game. So that's a pro tip for tonight.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well said.
Statistics, whether they're accurate, are going to have a huge role in asking whether things like diversion and education and etc. work. And so I think it's an interesting thing to put it out there that, you know, they act as a kind of verdict on a philosophically, politically driven way of thinking about crime, and they may be inconvenient.
Well, what happens, Gary, right? What happens is, you know, there's not a systematic approach because you can measure it against your experience. Okay.
Right.
So you end up going all over the place quickly, and you end up burning up the most critical time that you need. And that's like the very beginning. What are they saying? Where's it coming from? Who's our witnesses? What evidence do we have? All of that stuff presenting itself within the first 24 to 48 hours is so critical in solving a case. Right. And when you have a sheriff now who shows up and says, you know, I'm in charge, now it even gets diluted even further and further and further. And so you end up chasing all of these red herrings quickly, which is tied up 5 months of work.
Yeah, I see.
And so even today, you still have folks that, you know, have never worked a murder. Now they've responded to murders, or they've been, you know, they've analyzed murders, you know, in a lab somewhere, i.e. in the basement at the behavior science unit. Okay. But they've never stood over the carcass and tried to figure out what lion they were dealing with. I've said this 1,000 times. Okay. It's a different mindset. And it's only learned because you have to stand over the carcass. And that is a whole different mindset. And so if you look at what's going on, and I use YouTube as a good example, because if you want to see what just happened to Nanos's department by stripping the people out that had worked, well, then let's get a range master, okay, who's never worked a homicide, and let that person opine to the world about what it's like to work a homicide. That would be like me trying to say, well, you know, I never used to teach shooting, so therefore I have a lot more knowledge than the person that used to teach shooting. Okay. And the list goes on. If I was a reserve officer in Ogden, Utah, and I've never, ever worked a murder in my life, but somehow I'm a profiler across the world. Okay. That this is the problem that happens, and the public goes, oh, well, that guy has a lot of knowledge, or this person, or that girl, or this person. No, that's what Nanos did to his department. He stripped the walls of all the wallpaper that said, you know what, we got something good here. It's cooking. Look at what's his name? The sergeant from the association. Okay.
Aaron Cross.
Aaron Cross. He put that guy in what? He's writing reports.
Yeah, telephone reports.
This guy's answering the phone. Okay. He's been on the SWAT team. He's been all kinds of, he was a detective in CID for a while. This guy's done different things in that department. Guess where Nanos put him? Oh, you're going to answer the phone and take reports over the phone. That's your job now. And here's that is a sad situation, because Lady Justice requires a couple of things. And Nancy Guthrie requires experienced investigators, because if we look at what the symbolism of Lady Justice is, it's not the same symbolism that these three project. These three do not project what she requires. The ultimate symbol of impartiality, fairness, and moral balance in a justice system worldwide. Meaning, if you're from another country and you come here, the Constitution covers you if you commit a crime. The Supreme Court will cover you if you commit a crime. Now, what the ultimate end result is, that's up to a jury. That's their responsibility. And that's why the blindfold is so important. It symbolizes objectivity, impartiality, and fair treatment for everyone. Not because somebody has tattoos on their arms, their legs, their heads, or whatever. A lot of veterans have tattoos. Are we afraid of them just by looking at them? There's, Lady Justice wears that blindfold so that we can be impartial and not pick teams. The toga, I bet you a lot of people don't even know what the toga stands for. It represents the mantle of responsibility and a high level of philosophy of those who practice and enforce justice. The toga wraps itself around these three. And when it's torn by any one of them, it breaks the scales of justice, which she is holding. And that's the double-edged sword, because it embodies authority, respect, transparency, and the potential for justice, because it can cut both ways. That is the symbolism of our country's judicial system, the Lady of Justice. And when you have three individuals who have already been up against that symbolism for their own behavior, and then they don't like somebody or someone because of a political belief, because of a feeling, a thought, because we don't all, agree, okay, we're in big trouble. We're in big trouble.
Well, Chris, is it okay if I just respond to something that somebody said? Of course,
please.
So somebody, and I don't think this is, forgive me for saying so, a member of Mensa, said that because I asked about statistics, that this implied that I don't care about victims. This is one of the most absurd dot connections I've seen in a long time. But I want to be clear that the reason I asked that question is simply to understand the justification for the elimination of people boots on the ground. And it's precisely because I understand that statistics can be shaded, which is why I'm glad that we talked about it. But just anybody who knows me for 5 minutes knows my entire life is dedicated to victims and taking care of them. So I found that to be a rather tasteless remark.
Yes, of course.
But other than that, the chat has been really quite interesting regarding this. And but Chris, I think what's interesting about what you're saying is it almost, unless I'm misunderstanding you, it almost seems that you're suggesting that this Guthrie case coming along was something of an inconvenient truth in the context in which it happened, that it comes along and sort of blows up a problematic political kind of philosophical environment where it wasn't expected to happen. And then it came along, and now it's like the spotlight is on this problem. I mean, is that what you were suggesting? Because it's a very interesting point of view, that in other words, the stage is set to not be prepared. And then on top of it, you're suggesting to then say, we don't even want federal help. So that it all winds up to the detriment of Nancy.
That is a partiality of what I'm saying. Yes, but I also think there is something more afoot here, and that there are narratives being played out. It bothered me from the very first day when the sheriff stood there and said, "I want to make sure I get the bullet points from the family."
Right.
Okay. Well, what if they're the suspects? I'm not saying they are, but what if they are? Right. Are you reading the bullet points for the people that potentially could be? I don't know. And that goes back to this, the sword.
Yeah.
It goes back to this. Well, wait a minute. There has to be transparency here. There is no way in the Lord's world should that sheriff had said, "I have a statement here from the family." If the family wants to make a statement, then they have the biggest platform in the world, 3.8 million viewers every single morning on the Today Show.
Well, I've never seen that in all the years I've ever had anything to do with crime. I have never seen law enforcement come out and be the spokesperson for even a very high profile person.
If I were to
unless
walk
I'm
out there,
mistaken, I have never seen.
Go ahead,
Yeah,
Bob.
nor have I. Yeah, and I'll tell you, I went through a very extensive public information officer course at the FBI Academy put on by the great Jim Vance. And that was drilled into us by Jim that you are impartial and you state the facts and you keep the points to a minimum, at the same time releasing just the pertinent details. And I'm sure Jim would be appalled to see Nanos, I'm sure he did see it, act like that and make that statement. It's incredible that he did that.
John?
Yeah, the thing about it, when he said that, never attribute to malice what you can attribute to stupidity. This guy does. I'm sorry, Sheriff Nanos does not impress me as thinking things through. He impresses me, and look, I'm not playing profiler, but he is impulsive, and he says things, he shoots from the hip, and you don't get at a person at his level doesn't get to then say, "Oops, stupid me, I shouldn't have said that." Not that he would say that. Ignorance or being impulsive or being reckless in your comments, these are not defenses for doing something this far beyond the bounds of what we know, how information should be controlled at a major crime scene. So, you know.
Well, if the person comes out and now look, let's just say, we're not talking about this case, okay? Just in an imaginary case. Someone comes out and says, "Look, everybody, it's my sense that, the husband wasn't involved in this murder." Okay. And then later, science comes out and actually points to that that husband. Couldn't it affect the court case, that the pool of potential jurors heard from a figure of authority that that person was basically off the table and then later was put back on? I mean, couldn't you see a good lawyer using that?
Well, the defense wouldn't bring that up, Gary. They would want to employ that. What I could see is the person making those comments basically being on the stand for a long time, explain basically as a defense attorney, torments him or her with questions to make the state's case look weaker.
Well, it would make it look like the whole thing was, being operated, in a kind of hackneyed way, and that decisions are being made and about, who was involved or whatever in a willy-nilly, I mean, it feels like hold it all and say it at the end.
Yeah. The question would be is, do you remember on such and such a date you said that so-and-so was not involved in this crime? Well, yes. Would you please tell the jury what set of facts and circumstances led you to that conclusion? And then you just let the guy talk.
What you both are talking about was played out in the O.J. Simpson case. Johnny Cochran and his team did an outstanding job in just excoriating the LAPD and the LA DA's office. And so it just goes to show you what a good defense attorney can do. But if you give him the ammunition, they're going to load the gun and they're going to fire it at you. And that's what happened in OJ, in my opinion. And unfortunately, similar things could happen in this case.
Yeah, and people learn from prior cases what works.
Well, you would hope, but in Nanos's case,
they don't learn.
Experience is only relevant if you've learned from it. And as I've said before, he has not learned from his experience, apparently.
Well, I meant the attorneys learn, but that's a good point.
Well, I know, but the Nanos is making the mistakes, and that's my point.
I got it.
And
if this gets into court, you're going to be hearing Ginsu knives being sharpened. This is going to look like Benihana.
There are a lot of problems.
This guy is. It's going to be
a mess.
I mean, it's going to be fascinating to watch, and probably doesn't reflect. Probably be a little sadistic on my part to watch it. But this guy has engaged in behaviors that have led to this place where he's going to have to explain himself on the stand.
Well, let me ask a very painful question. Can any of you see a world in which charges might be brought and then ultimately have to be dropped?
In this case, the Guthrie case?
Yeah. Because of investigative issues or things like that? Or you don't see anything that egregious?
I wouldn't take that leap yet, but I mean, anything's possible there, but I don't know enough about.
Don't know enough. Can't speculate.
Inside the investigation to speculate,
But we do think it's affected the ability to locate a suspect.
Yeah.
Well, I think the suspect's been. Yeah, I think Bob's right on by titling the Nanos effect. That because I mean, just look at these letters. Look what keeps happening. I mean, is Harvey Levin, sitting there he's got one of his staff sending him letters, and reading them every Friday, for the bigger ratings. I don't know what's going on with that crap.
And I don't understand why more people aren't pressing Nanos and asking him, why are you not taking flyers of Porch Guy and combing the city, combing the entire area? I don't understand why that question's not being asked and why it's not even being done.
I have a theory on that.
What's your theory?
So, and a lot of people miss this. Early in the press conferences, when the sheriff said, and I don't know if I'm gonna rack this up to a nanoism or what, but hang on, one crazy Jack Russell underneath here talking to us. He wants a snack.
He wants a snack.
Can you grab a snack?
I will. Okay.
Okay. One of the things that is that I think got missed remember when they were talking about the DNA, the collection of the DNA?
Yeah.
And he made mention that, yes, okay, it's come back, it's Nancy's or et cetera, but we're still waiting for, some other forensics evidence. Okay. But he said something during that press conference where he said, and some of it was who you would expect it to be.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Remember that, guys? Right?
Yes.
No,
Okay. I thought that was a signal that even if they get DNA and they think it's somebody else, it's who they think. It's not going to be a surprise, and they would have a defense around it.
I see.
yeah, absolutely.
Now, if that evidence came off of an item, like I just got a text from one of my sources that says Laura has never prosecuted any case and Cameron has never investigated one. So the two, just like we were saying.
Well, don't be too judgmental, Chris. There's always beginner's luck.
Exactly, John.
One of the most high-profile cases in the history of the country.
Right. So I guess where I'm going real fast, and you guys tell me what you think, is he came back in. I'm talking to Karen. The dog's under me now with his treat. With him saying that, I thought, oh my gosh, he's setting it up for a potential nothing burger. Now, if they got it off of an item that potentially the suspect left behind, meaning it was brought into the crime scene, right? The theory of transfer. Let's hypothesize, right? If the suspect somehow figured out how to get into the house or whatever, okay? And they got DNA off of that item. Now that person has a bigger problem, and it could be reasonably argued by the prosecution that, hey, why is your DNA over here? It shouldn't be over here. And that would give them hope. But I'm really concerned that they're waiting just for the digital evidence, and that even with the, if they can't chase down the Bitcoin situation or anything like that, from a federal side, the only footprint they're going to have is going to be that digital footprint. But that it may or may not put them in the house, though. It may put them in the neighborhood. And then I think you'll probably have a smart defense attorney say, my guy's only the driver. He's not in the house. Thoughts?
That makes sense.
Yeah.
But this also illustrates, Chris, that, and you've said this from the beginning, as have, all of the rest of us, there's been an over-reliance on the notion that there's going to be some sort of magic bullet, either DNA or, as he said himself, the technology, the stuff connected with the phones and the doorbell camera. There has been almost nothing in the way of how many murders are solved, which is going out and pounding the pavement, wearing out shoe leather. And you illustrated that better than anything I could say with your recent trip to Tucson.
Yeah.
And the problem with his evidence, both the digital evidence and the DNA evidence, is that ultimately it can be rendered equivocal for the purposes of a trial. Okay, so you got some DNA, but my client, whatever reason to be there. Okay, so you got some digital stuff, but can you prove that my client lost the device? I've seen that offered. So,
So let's go back real fast to the old days. where we would sit around just like this and look at the strengths and the weaknesses of our case before we walked it over to the DA. I think, this is why I think it's so critical. And just to your point, John, to dovetail into it, I think it's so critical, even today, that, the body cameras are going to tell us a tremendous amount. I mean, what would we have done for body cameras, right? I mean, of course, it came in later, but
I'd have said, Satan, here's my soul.
Yeah.
And I'm still getting the better part of the deal.
That's what we love about John. Imagine working for him. He's hysterical. He's been like this for 40 plus years. No, but so, the strengths of those body cameras are going to be critical. They're going to be critical. The data points, I think they're going to be just like, yeah, okay. But I really believe that the shifting of this thing needs to leave the house and get out into the community where Nancy is and start pounding the pavement. Hopefully they've been doing, I know the gang task force have been doing, and the FBI gang task force, I know those guys have been, burning and, hooking and booking. Mm-hmm. They've been going 100 miles an hour. I'm sure of it. Yeah. But I have a fear based on some things that I learned, and Karen and I learned while there. And while we went into the sheriff's department, by the way, she went into the agency. It's almost like this impression of, yeah, we're in a holding pattern. We're waiting for stuff to come back. And it's like, well, wait a minute. Why aren't you out kicking the bushes and making things happen? And then you hear Nanos on this radio station. Karen, did you forget your notes? Do you remember the conversation?
I mean, it was essential. He was asked a couple of things about the investigation and didn't talk much. He did make an analogy between the arrest of he calls them content creators, and the person who wrote the ransom notes. So he showed disdain clearly for whoever wrote the ransom notes with the Nancy Guthrie case. In the same breath, compared them, jokingly, to content creators that he had arrested. So I thought that was really kind of interesting. And you guys can go listen to it. It's online. You can find it. It was a radio interview he did very recently.
Interesting.
So his mindset is he's got an enemies list.
And wait, let me add, I just remembered. Also, his political opponents, he has the same disdain for, as his words, not mine, as the content creators and the ransom note author or authors.
So he compared the YouTubers that he arrested to the guys writing the letters and to his political opponents. That's his mindset.
Gary, what do you make of that? You're a forensic psychologist.
I mean, the attribution is strange. I'm not really sure why it was made, but it suggests a worldview in which, I mean, look, I don't want to analyze him, but generally speaking, it suggests a worldview in which you're either with me or against me. And even if somebody is just doing reporting, they can be a bad guy because they're putting a spotlight or talking about you or something. And I mean, that's what it seems like. I don't know what that means, but that is disturbing. But I just wanted to say about your idea about the going out on the ground and shaking the trees as being more important in a way in this case than like DNA in many ways, or even maybe electronics. Is that I think we've also got a new golden opportunity arising in this case, which is that if those two notes are real, the two that Savannah thinks are real, it does look like there's a division forming in the cabal that did this. So I think the approach of going out and finding Porch Guy and the division that seems to be happening there, it suggests, there's no honor among thieves, right? I mean, ultimately, the idea is to crack the group and get one of them to talk. I think whoever wrote the second note, you could appeal to them in the sense that they may be, I mean, look, I do think it was legally defensive to write, it was an accident, whatever. Part of me thinks it also may reflect some guilt. And that person may can be compelled by somebody going on TV and saying, free yourself, unburden yourself. You seem to want to talk. You seem to be the one in this group who wants to say something, that kind of thing. And then alongside what you're suggesting, going out and finding Porch Guy, who I think would be was probably some kind of hired goon that would be more than happy to exonerate himself by throwing everybody else under the bus. One way or another, I think that group is falling apart. I think it's really hard under the pressure of what the heck is going on in the press and everything to hold it together. And you've got a bunch of people that have to keep their mouths shut. I just think that's the way to get this case solved, is to get someone to rat on the others. I mean, haven't you guys used that technique a million times?
Yes.
Yeah, but
yeah.
What do you think, Chris? I mean, does it feel that way? Like the group is collapsing?
No, not yet.
Oh, but you think it could?
Well, anything's possible, but it all depends what the allegiance is in that group.
Porch Guy. Chris, your description of nanos for your viewers, and I know Gary will likely remember this, the film The Cane Mutiny.
Oh, yes.
Humphrey Bogart played a character who has a meltdown because he feels he's surrounded by disloyal officers.
Right.
And if you can get a chance to watch Humphrey Bogart with metal balls in his hands, clacking them on the stand and talking about being able to geometrically prove that the strawberries were being missing because he had disloyal officers. This almost reminds me of Nanos, Captain Queeg.
Well, that movie, a picture of paranoia.
What bothers me about his intelligence level is the fact that he compares YouTubers with the letter writer.
Yeah, I don't know
that tells you his bias. That tells you all you need to know.
Well, they're enemies, just like the person. See, the person who wrote the letters created a negative situation, and the YouTubers, he has no level of discrimination as far as he takes everything personally.
Yeah, he doesn't have a valve.
The fact that this person is the leader of the sheriff's department and how many deputies, and now obviously this case, it's mind-boggling. It's frightening, to be honest.
Well, and when we measure it against the guy that he selected to run the investigation.
Yeah, what kind of experience does he have?
Well, he has none. He's never worked a case.
Any criminal case?
No, and plus this guy, again, we got to follow the bouncing ball here. Remember the bouncing ball? If it goes from right to left, okay. But in this case, it goes left to right. And if we just follow the bouncing ball, it's bouncing over. What if I was to do a suspectology in terms of understanding, think about this. The people that they arrested, they took their DNA swabs. I guarantee it, in the jail. I'll guarantee you Nanos will pay to get those DNA swabs thrown into CODIS. Just because they're YouTubers. I mean, if we really think about that, do the math on that kind of stuff. This is how nitpick this guy can be. I'll guarantee it. Okay, I'll guarantee it. I'll tell you what, I'm going to wear my seatbelt next time I'm going into Tucson. You can bet you, dimes to donuts. Okay, but this is his. I mean, Gary, you got to admit this guy is a narcissist times 10.
Well,
he can't. You keep going to the well, Chris.
I think that without giving a diagnosis, you could make a description of a person's behavior in an informal way, right? And and it sounds like you're laying out a picture of a person with a certain interpersonal style, but I can't give it a diagnostic label. But you can.
Never laid a glove on me. Float like a butterfly, sting like a bee, Gary.
Yeah. But how did I remember
right, I get it.
how
We
Niles
all
Crane
know.
put it.
All right.
What did Niles Crane say? You float like a lepidoptera and sting like
Yeah.
a hymenoptera. I think
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
Is that
but
Kramer from
here's
Seinfeld?
here's the good news, Gary. He's a public servant.
yeah, I
So
got it.
He's a public figure.
he's a public figure.
The
So
whole
Elected
therefore,
official.
there,
Have at it.
yeah, therefore, if there, it is what it is with him. But at the same time, what he's doing is he's abusing his power. And guess what? What he's doing is he's passing down that behavior. It's a learned behavior from the administration, like Bob has talked about many times. Poor leadership is pushed down from the top, okay, to the citizens. And the citizens, I guarantee you, and Nancy Guthrie is just an example of able to, just because she has a lot more high profile because of the daughter.
Yeah.
Okay, well, what if he allowed his judgment to be clouded and purposely didn't do things just because? Is that possible? I don't know. But I'll never say never, because I was put into a position with a guy named Richard Tuitt by the government. And I told him, there's no way I'm going down that road. You can forget it. And I told the DA, I told the defense, I told everybody. I even called into a radio show called the Rick Roberts Show. Well, Mary Ellen Attridge was on the air slamming me. Absolutely. Really? Oh, yes. It's on 48 Hours. You can go listen to it. I called in and I said, wait a minute, what about the rights of Richard Tuitt? You're saying that A, B, C, and D, but what about his rights? What if there was a cross-contamination from the laboratory and 3 centimeters of blood got on his sweatshirt because George Durgan kneeled in Stephanie Crow's blood and took the same tripod back to the jail cell, took him out of his clothing, out of that sweater, and put him in a paper suit? Are you saying he couldn't have cross-contaminated that? And guess what? George Durgan, to his credit, when Brad Patton had him on the stand, he said, yes, sir, I probably contaminated it. It's in the record. It's in the court. Guess what? Not guilty. And you know what? They sued me. They sued me. They depoted my wife for almost 5.5 hours. Okay. I was in federal court for 13 years. I know what it feels like to be accused of something you never did.
Ugh.
And it lives on the internet today. It lives on the internet today. So do I put it past Nanos that he could have done something? My answer is no. I won't put it. Do I think he's a suspect? Heck no. Do I think he's involved? Heck no. Do I think he may be trying to cover for something or somebody? Heck yes. I do. I think a lot of people are playing a game and it's staring them right in the face. And guess who's suffering? Nancy Guthrie, who's out there somewhere. And people could go find her, meaning they could put pressure on the right people, like Bob talked about, like John has talked about, like you have talked about for many, many hours. And you want to know the irony of this Richard Tuitt guy, just real fast? His niece was murdered in our town. Her name was Brooke Tuitt. Mike Wood worked that case, and I was his third on that one.
Rest in peace, Mike Wood.
So talk about the universe being on schedule. And by the way, the guy's been out of prison or out of jail for many, many years now. Okay. And he never committed another crime, that they said, if he gets out or whatever, he's going to commit all these murders. Well, guess what? The guy's a schizophrenic. Okay. And the government thought it was an easy target to put on his back. Am I right, John? You were there.
Yes, this was a target of opportunity.
And the DA in San Diego today, Summer Stephan, who is a good woman, refused to prosecute him. But somebody else came right behind him, right behind her. Her name is Bonnie DeMonis. And then she was too scared to do it because she was of a political nature. So she handed it to her political rival at the AG's office. And the AG took the case on. Certainly don't want Bonnie to do it. Because there was a cartoon in the locals where she stood on the grave of the little girl. Her name is Stephanie Crow, and said, if you elect me, the first person I'm going to arrest is Richard Tewitt. And lo and behold, as soon as she got elected, she hooked him up and then handed the case off to the Attorney General's office. And they lost the case because people like me would not testify and not go along with the program. But I was willing to get sued for it. I'll take that number. Okay. But guess what? I still have my integrity and I still have my character, and both are intact. Even with all of the lies, the innuendos, the depositioning my wife, all of that crap, the books, the movies, they've done it all. Okay. So my question today is, do I think Nanos is that kind of guy that would go after a guy like me? Yeah, I believe that. Just like I think he has even gone after half of his staff in the department. I think he's that kind of guy. And they're dangerous. They're very
dangerous. They're not uncommon in police departments, among police administrators, law enforcement. His type is not uncommon.
Very dangerous, Gary.
So rest easy tonight, citizens.
Let's get through some of these questions.
Okay.
I'm just, in my opinion, it just sounds like Sheriff is hiding something, maybe a friend or employer of himself. Everything is so crooked. You know what? There seems to be that feeling, doesn't there? So when that one guy voted for getting rid of nonads for perjury, et cetera, why wasn't his motion second? That is a great point, Sandy Baker. That is a great point. You are actually, that is a solid position. And I really appreciate you saying that. Florida Girl, 128. Where I practice, the bar would not pleased with her publicly referring it to as minor misconduct. That would likely be another violation.
That's a great point.
Great point. Interesting.
The real Y2 says, if the kidnappers admitted that Nancy died within the first week and the snitch sent TMZ the same information at the same time, doesn't each source confirm the other?
I
don't
think
know what's true anymore in this case.
It's very confusing.
Oh, what a tangled web we weave when first we practice to deceive.
Because we don't know the chronology of the delivery of the documents. We don't know how they came about. But if what you're saying, if you're asking, is it possible? Yeah, they might mutually support each other.
Go ahead, hon.
Why on those, this is from Windove, why on those films was a ceiling porch light and on the other film, none? Is the film legit or a distraction? Why would someone want retribution and has a motive? Who hated Nancy and Savannah? Who truly does?
Yeah, I think for me, the motive's going to come out as money. If I was a case agent, that's the lane I would stay in.
Financial gain.
Chris and Karen, after your trip to Tucson, do you still believe this case could be solved? It can be solved with the right forensics and the right electronic digital footprint and the right witnesses. And a lot of times lies become your strongest evidence.
Yeah.
Becky says, please listen to Dad's Gone Live this afternoon. He called Pima, PIO, for clarity on streamers. PIO gave an answer that will blow your mind.
I can't wait.
Oh, yeah. C. Marcus says, do we know if the Guthrie family have supported or contributed to Nano's election campaign?
That's easy to find out. Look who donated to his campaign.
Teddy and Roger say, don't forget all the gloves that were tested and we were told they were left all by searchers.
Yeah, that was a problem, wasn't it? Thank you.
Thank you, Katie. Thank you, everybody.
Buddy's treats.
Thank you, Clarissa.
And by the way, before I forget, seeing how I brought up to it, I did a whole, I had Brad Patton on, and anybody can go watch it in my playlist. He's the guy who represented to it.
Thank you, Vicky. Crinkle cut French fries. Gotta love that.
Whoops, I'm sorry. My bad.
With all that Chris and Karen have learned, will the case be solved anytime soon? I'll let Chris answer that.
Same answer. Yeah, from a couple of minutes ago.
Yeah.
With the digital footprint. And by the way, lies, Danny knows who or John knows who I'm going to talk about. Mark Bettine used to blow up defendant statements and put them on these huge boards and bring them into court and just put them one at a time in front of a jury.
Oh, it was very powerful, very powerful.
Extremely powerful. Isn't it true you said this? And when they wouldn't say it, he'd say, okay, well, let's play it. It's like, next, Buddy Treats, thank you. And thank you. Okay. So that's it. What a great show. Bob, thank you guys for being here tonight. John, you want to tell them where they can get your books? We've got 10,000 people here.
Well, the books, I believe you've got links down below for the Service with a Sneer and Beach Blanket Bedlam. I know I keep saying this over and over again that Bring Out Your Dead should be out soon. I'm hoping, in fact, I'll send it to Chris. I actually have the cover for the book now, and at some point, maybe one of the next shows, we could share that. But the books are down there. I've also had questions from people wanting to know if I wrote the murder mysteries set in the world of collectible teddy bears. Yes, I did write those. So, but they're out there, and I want to thank everybody who's bought the books, and I want to thank you, Chris and Karen, the mods, everybody for the opportunity to be here. This has been really a thought-provoking night.
It certainly has.
Well, thank you all for being here. Thank you, John and Bob and Gary.
Yep. And Gary, tell them about your books.
Well, the book that most people are interested in reading, among the ones I've done, is The New Evil. You can get that at any Barnes & Noble or any major bookstore or on Amazon or anything like that. It's been around now for about 7 years. And I'm pleased to say, hearing all the time about that people still find it beneficial. I know it's used now as a textbook in a few forensic programs in the country. In fact, there's a course at Florida Gulf Coast University on evil that it's the textbook for, I'm pleased to say. So I really do appreciate that. So keep on having a read.
Awesome. Robert, you got anything cooking up there?
Well, let's see. No true crime YouTube channels, no skincare products, no books, no piano playing YouTube channel, no nothing. Just a happy, retired, bald-headed old policeman. So
you start a fishing channel.
Enjoying life.
Yeah.
Start a fishing channel.
The reason we do this is because of her right here. That's why we do this. We do this for the families, and we do this for victims. And we do this for many, many, not just Nancy Guthrie. We just did a case just the other day where we talked about a young little girl and Emily Pike. We're hoping that gets resolved. But this is why we do what we do here. And we're grateful to each and every one of you for giving us this platform, because without you, we could not do this. And we acknowledge that in of itself, in totality. So thank you so much for being with us. As they say in Hawaii, be akamai, pay attention to what's around you, and we will see you on the next one. Aloha.
Hard working every day, I'm stressed out 24/7, babe. No timeouts, wish we could fly away. You and I go to our favorite place. Oh yeah, make special memories together. I'll be your company now and forever. I say we fly away, you and me, go to our favorite place. Feeling the sun on my face in Hawaii. With you, Hawaii. With you, Hawaii. With you, Hawaii. I need a summer breeze, some fresh air to put my mind at ease. No cares. You wanna come with me? Me and you go to our favorite tree. Are you ready now? We jump on a plane now. We're taking away. Yeah, we're taking away. Don't hesitate now. We're taking away. Yeah, we're taking away. We'll never come down. We're going away.